Okay, we are now recording. Okay. Okay. So while we're waiting, I see we've got, people trickling in. Like I said, we'll literally, we'll start officially in 2 minutes, just the way we would in a regular meeting. Give people a couple minutes to set. So what I'm going to do though is I'm going to be sharing my screen, which is we're going to start at the district level. So you're going to get something that you may have already seen. And just to kind of get ourselves organized, because then what that will do is give us a springboard for what all of this means for HMTCA. So what you're seeing me pull up right now is taken from the Board of Ed meeting. And it's, if you were just on the town hall provided by Dr. Torres Rodriguez, she also showed this slideshow, which it may have been revised since the Board of Ed meeting because things are always changing. And I'm going to stop share and then reshare. So I just want to get myself organized here. As we go, I see we have, thank you for some of our team members who were able to make the call. I see Ms. Cruz-Reese, I see Mrs. Andrews. Who else from our team is here? We're all on the same team, but there's a number of different screens. Anyway, Mrs. Andrews, I have a favor to ask of you. There is a chat box, and the chat box is, I want to let everybody know, just because I did this before 5:30, the meeting is being recorded. So the chat box is a place where you could type in a question, and then potentially either Ms. Cruz-Reese or Mrs. Andrews could also be kind of moderators a little bit and watching the chat box. I will also be watching the chat box. So as you come up with questions, you can, thanks, Karen, you can put your questions in there and I will do my best to provide answers for them. And watching our numbers climb, because I was really excited. I reached out to Hartford Public Schools to ask for a larger platform, because my personal Zoom account that I've been using for our meetings stops at 100. So we should be able to take as many people as we want to get in. All right, let's get to, I see good questions coming. Let's get down to the meeting. And I want to just first off say thank you for taking your time to attend this meeting. My goal is to get everyone who's here, raise everybody's awareness, increase awareness of what is happening at the state level and the district level for our return to school plans, and also to share what that means for HMTCA. And I'm going to be very transparent about a couple of things. One is, I want, even though we will not have all the answers, I want everyone who attends to feel that your questions were heard and that we're going to do everything we can to get the answers as quickly as we can. But I also want you to still feel really excited about being part of HMTCA, and that you're in the right place. Your kids are in the right place. The choices that you're going to have and the way we're going to do things is going to be consistent with the high standards that you have for your students here. That's going to remind you of why you chose HMTCA. And that even though it's going to be a bumpy ride and a little bit messy the way it was last spring, that we're going to end up in a good place. Okay, so that's kind of my goal. So if I don't give you that kind of confidence, I want to know so I can figure out how to earn that. All right, and I'm really hoping that this is not capped at 100. So if anyone that you know texts you and saying they can't get in, if you could let them be on speakerphone with you, that would be a big help. And like I said, we're recording it, so I'll send it to them. Okay, so let's move on. Let's get to the why you're here. So I would like to know how many people have been to the town hall meeting or watched the Board of Ed meeting or have a general sense of what's going on, which I think is probably a big ask with 100 people in the room. So if you want to answer in the chat that you're somewhat familiar, you can do that. And also, if you put your hand up, I will stop in a second to take your question. Most people, I will just say, look, even if you have been on calls or meetings, I learn something every time I listen to this stuff. So I'm going to just move on. And the district is setting things up. These are the way that they're framing things, that it's always about the people. It's always about, is this doable? Is this something that we can do? Planning for a realistic plan, and that we're planning for learning and innovation and doing things differently the way we need to go. So I'm going to skip through this slide rather quickly, but basically at the state level, this bottom page, this bottom line axis is about the danger risk and what the restrictions are on the vertical axis. So when things are the way they are now, we would go to the least restrictive model. If the increase to danger increased, we would go to a different model, which is called hybrid, which we're going to spend a fair amount of time with. And then if they are at their most dangerous, then we would be at the remote level, which is what we were doing in the spring. Luckily, Connecticut is a leader in the United States right now. And I'm not sure, things change day to day, but we are one of the few states that would be considered green. And that's done through, you can even see this as the global epidemics way of gauging that. So good job, Connecticut. That means that we're staying socially distanced, we're wearing masks, we're washing our hands frequently, we're trying to not touch our faces, and we're not, the virus is not getting passed on. So it's not getting caught and it's not passed on. But this, what you see here, and if you close your participant box, you would see that if we're in the green, which are the best possible conditions, the district would use a schedule where we would all be at school together, everybody in person in school, where students would be as close to 6 feet apart as possible. So if you see this here, it says this will mean in many classrooms, students will be less than 6 feet apart. Okay, so that's the compromise if we are in the green. If we're in the yellow or orange, these are national ways of looking at COVID, we would move to the hybrid schedule. So in a hybrid, which I think I'll be able to explain a little bit better through another slide, which is right here, it's a great visual, is that, and this is what you want to look at here in the bottom box, that we would do a block schedule in which, if you look at these are the days of the week, half of our students would go to school in person, while the other half were using virtual learning, distance learning. We'd have a Wednesday, all distance learning, and then Thursday, the other students, group B, would be in person, while group A would be doing remote learning. And we're going to get into what that looks like for HMTCA in a moment. So we've got, in both cases, regardless of whether it's green or yellow or orange, the conditions need to be that we are all wearing masks and that we have certain protocols for how we enter the building, how we move through the building, how we dismiss, etc., which we're in the process of putting those in place. And in the green, going back to this as being one of the conditions that cannot be met, we will try our best to be as close to 6 feet apart. Whereas in the hybrid model, we will be 6 feet apart. And that will be very strictly maintained. The decision as to whether we are all in person or whether we are in hybrid is something that would be made via the district with the state guidance. In other words, Principal Goldstein and families, we cannot decide that the hybrid model is the best one for us. We'll get to that in a second. Let me pause. I'll even stop sharing my screen, and let's pause and see what questions we have right now at this point. I see, oh my goodness, there's 46 things in the chat already. Okay. I'm going to not read these out loud, but I'm going to look at them to see if it makes sense to answer now or wait. So give me one moment.
So Julie, this is Ms. Cruz-Reese, just to step in. There's a bunch of questions regarding if kids who are in different grade levels can attend the same days if we're in the hybrid model. So maybe you want to speak to how those will be broken up a little bit.
Sure. So I know that the goal is that families would be together. And I don't know the degree to which schools are going to be able to make that decision. So I see other questions about what's happening. Let me get that. I do see that the Zoom is maxed at 100, which is just making me upset because you got into this meeting with the goal that there would be 300 people allowed, and I apologize for that. Okay, I see comments and some questions. I'm going to get back to the questions in a second. Yes, let's talk some more details. I did see a hand raised, so I don't know if someone wanted, if you had your hand raised, which you do through going into the participants box, if it's maybe an easier question to ask out loud. Did someone have a question that you wanted to ask? Okay. All right, let's.
I also see a question about the difference between the district's virtual learning and the school's virtual learning.
Okay. So some of your questions I'll answer as I hear them, and some of them will be answered within the presentation. So let's talk about your options, okay? I think that we're clear. So right now, just to be clear, green, the green, like we're in code green right now. If you were like, what's your state? What's your state? You know, we're in green. Whereas like Houston, Texas is like in red right now. They're kind of like how New York City was back in March. So like it is dangerous in Houston. Therefore, whatever decisions Houston makes is probably going to be remote learning because they're in red. Miami, Florida, that whole county in Florida is in orange and red right now. So for that reason, they would choose a remote option for their entire district because they can't afford to keep the virus circulating. Connecticut is in green. So right now, according to how the state has worded it, that would mean we would all go back to school. So that's what this scenario is, that everyone would come back. So like at HMTCA, right? Your child would come to school. And everyone will wear a mask, and we're going to have different meetings closer to the opening of school to talk about and to share some training videos as well, to talk about where we're going to have this arrival, how students are going to stay socially distanced walking into school, how we'll keep students as close to socially distanced as possible within the school, but they will follow their regular schedule right now is what the plan is. Okay. And we have other measures that that would keep your children safe, that are the case, whether it's in green, yellow, or orange. A couple of things that the district is doing, they're making sure that the filters in our air conditioning are the recommended kind of filters that keep air from circulating between rooms. In other words, it's almost like having a mask on in the room. We know the virus spreads through droplets. The droplets, when we are all wearing masks, cannot be transferred from one of us to the other. The air conditioning filters make sure that the droplets, should there be any, which would be highly unlikely because we are all wearing masks, but that also would contain a virus if it were to be in the school. We know that many of our middle school classrooms, as an example, have sinks in them. Our students have access to regular opportunities to keep their hands washed. There will be hand sanitizer. We'll all have access to masks. You can bring your own mask. We will have masks supplied by the district as well. That, we would not make physical contact, and that we would have planned and mindful mask breaks that would be, taking place outside of the building to give students that opportunity to take a mask break. So going back to what I had just shared with what my goal is that although I cannot give you the details that I know I'm eager to be able to share, I want HMTCA to stay together. I want you to come along for the ride with us, knowing that the same level, the same quality of programming, the same quality of your teachers, the same quality of your scheduling is maintained, and that it's going to be okay. If you have a medical issue, I want to work out how your child would still be part of the HMTCA process. So that's my goal. That said, let's talk a little bit about what options are being provided through the district right now. So option A is this. It's going along with what's happening, right? So it's like, oh, HMTCA says it's all in person. You would try that. HMTCA says it's hybrid. Your child would, start out in hybrid, whatever that is. Option B is in the middle. There's an option C coming up. Option B is for the family who wants to begin or have their child participate in a school-based distance learning modality with the option of coming into the building at the moment that they feel it's right for their child, like at that time when either maybe your child has a health issue that the doctor is recommending they not come into the building. Maybe there's a personal reason that you have, but that your child, should you choose option B, would make it easier for your child to come back into the school for the content that they're getting. Option C is what's being called the Hartford Public Schools Virtual Academy. So option C is for the family who is very sure, and you can see it right up here, that you'll never want your child to come into a school this year. So that's like for someone who's crystal clear that you don't want to come into HMTCA. and that you do want your child to get a high quality remote instruction. Okay. And because nobody really has a crystal ball, we cannot see into the future. The commitment that you would be making is that your child would stay in this distance learning process for at least a full marking period before you were able to ask to change your mind. So it's not 100% permanent, but it's permanent enough that you say, I'm definitely going to have my child enroll in the online platform only, and that you would revisit it in the quarter by quarter. Okay. Let me see, because this is not my PowerPoint. That's it. Okay. So let's stop there again. And I really appreciated, Ms. Cruz-Reese, I appreciated your reading the comments. I do see that we have 2 raised hands. So if someone wanted to share your question, you could do that. If you have a hand raised. Otherwise, I'm going to just look through our questions here. And go ahead.
Question about the distance learning options.
Yeah.
Is there a difference in the content between the school provided virtual learning and the district provided virtual learning? I'm talking the actual content between the options 2 and 3.
Yes, there would be a difference in that content.
And what is that? Is it different offerings, limited offer, more limited in one or the other?
Excellent question.
That information will go out soon.
So that's one of those questions that has to get fleshed out at the district level. But I can speak with confidence to let you know that from the elementary through the middle school, you would not have the arts programming that we have. You would have that core academic programming, and that because of our Common Core state standards, what your child would be learning, especially if it's through the district, is going to have a very similar content, because we are following Common Core state standards, and the district has mapped out, if you will, much of the curriculum that runs up through our middle school academic classes. Once you get to the high school, there's a lot more autonomy within the curriculum. It's monitored by the district. So high school is trickier. High school is something that when I find out who are our students who have opted for option C, which is the option that you choose when you want to be 100% remote, at least by quarter, I would need to look at where the gaps are for your student. I say you know that I mean our team, the school. But if there were a significant gap, I would need to figure out how to fill that. Examples being AP classes, okay? Examples being classes with small enrollment, such as Chinese in our school, or something more like early college environmental studies, are examples of why I'm really hoping to make it work for your student if they're in high school, because each of our schedules has been built already. And it's been based on recommendations by teachers and based on student requests and with parent input. And we have very tailored schedules. So I would want you to be able to maintain that. And so what I'm looking to be able to do, I'm kind of drawing an invisible line, is that through each of the options, whether it's in-person, hybrid, or remote, what remains the same is your child's schedule. So in person, that's kind of easy to picture. how that would be maintained. Hybrid, your child would follow their schedule. They'd be in person for 2 of the days. They'd be virtual for 3 of the days. And they'd be with their same classes. Their classmates would be consistent of a group that's in school and out of school, making up that full class. And then obviously, in hopefully unlikely but possible event that we do have to go remote entirely, that your student, as they did in the spring, follows the schedule that they had, with an increase in quality, okay? Because that's something that I know many of our teachers are thinking about, because remote learning in the hybrid and the distance learning requires that remote teaching. So that's something that we're going to be doing more professional development on, and that teachers will be finessing and working together to make that, to keep improving in how that delivery goes.
Hi, Mrs. Goldstein, I do have a question, if you don't mind.
Sure. Hey.
Okay, so in regards to, because I'm thinking about having Peyton just remote the first quarter.
Okay.
If we decide to go with option B, in school and some days remote, the classes when she's remote, are those the same teachers that's going to be teaching remote as it is in class? Or these are certified and non-certified teachers? Like, what is that whole difference?
Excellent question. And that's another one where I don't really have the authority to be able to answer that question. It's to be determined. So remind me what grade Peyton's in. I know we're not talking about.
Yeah, she's not just Peyton, she's going to be a sophomore. So for any parent who's looking at.
Yeah. No, but the grade level was kind of, sorry, you're right. Oh. It's not just about your child, but so that's a great example. That's a great example about how sophisticated this decision making gets, and how what our job is going to be to maintain the scheduling. So it would have to be the same teachers, right?
Okay.
So she would be doing the classes that she gets through the online platform.
Whether that be honors, AP, or whatever. Well, in this case, honors. Okay.
Right. We will have, I know the district is also trying to support, as you know, some people can relate to this. We have teachers who have, it doesn't matter, like you said, it's really not, it's personal. And why you choose to have your child be in the remote setting is not going to be challenged. Okay. It doesn't have to be approved, right? You're the parent, so you're going to make the decision. Right now, what the district is sorting out or gathering the information for, they can't sort it out yet, is that who from our staff is not able to be teaching in our school, but who will be providing instruction via what you had just described, Ms. Roberts, through the online learning. So we will, like, as an example, and I just don't have that information yet, right? So and those questions will have answers within a fairly short amount of time, but it is, it's a difficult time for you, and it's just challenging for us, because while from the program planning standpoint, we're creating the vision for what it will look like, the nitty gritty is related to who will be here and who will be choosing the online platform.
And you all will be able to make that determination after we complete that final survey that's due by the 28th. Is that how you determine what that is going to look like?
That's right. That's how the details are going to get sorted out.
Okay. Thank you.
Absolutely. Thank you.
Ms. Goldstein, I have a question.
Yes.
Right. So I'm trying to understand if once you get the survey results and there's parents that want their children to return to school, is there the possibility of cohorting kids that are going to return to school with a certain teacher? Because the idea of keeping people together is best practice in public health to maintain contact tracing.
Mm-hmm.
And that you can keep those families safe.
Mm-hmm.
The only way this virus is going to stop spreading if people have strong adherence to standards of precautions. And if you can cohort the kids that want to be together at school with a teacher, you can maintain more control of a potential spread in the school.
Correct.
Is that your plan?
Yes. The short answer, yes. More details are, the concept of a cohort is like there's a continuum of cohorts, right? So from a very sort of acute and orthodox version of a cohort, you're talking about one group of kids, like 14 kids.
14 kids with
kids.
a teacher.
But the continuum of the cohort is that at the middle school level, middle school teams are cohorts. So a middle school team is a cohort because it's a known group of students, right, that are getting their classes from their, within their cluster. The encore classes are going to need to get tweaked to maintain more, a tighter control over that, because we can't, to your point, have a lot of overlap.
But even in a setting of a cluster where it should be 80 kids, 90 kids, it's still too much in a sense of if there's one kid that came in contact with 80 kids, now you have potentially, 400, 500 people because of their family.
So from the standpoint, and I'm gonna interrupt for a second. Just last week, I was really fortunate to have been able to have personal consults with 2 pandemic experts who provided me and Mrs. Lalama, Mr. Patel, and Mrs. Lavecchia with an hour's time to talk this through. And this, the medical doctor on the team, who also is a medical doctor who is on MSNBC, his name is Mario Ramirez, said that when we wear a mask, we are not spreading the virus. He is not concerned about the virus spreading inside of a school when we all maintain the same conditions of mask wearing. That is a non-negotiable. And the concern that he would have in the scenario that you gave is that we allowed a visitor into our school who didn't wear a mask, which obviously would never happen. But other than that, the mask wearing, and I honestly do think that is why Connecticut is rocking it out, because everyone that I see is wearing a mask.
Compliance too with adults, it's compliance. But in general, we're still in phase 2 in Connecticut. We haven't opened completely. So we're basically asking our children to become the phase 3.
Well, that's a good point, and that's a conversation. What I would like to show you is we did start setting up some classrooms for the hybrid model, which, remember with the hybrid, I'm just moving over something so I can find the page with the pictures. The hybrid model insists on the 6 feet distance, right? So I thought we should probably start planning for that. And I just wanted to show you what that looks like. So I can't find, I actually ended up doing it as a video for the high school. But basically, Mr. Medina, our head custodian, with his team, took out, and this is, some people might recognize this classroom. So, we're gonna work on using desks as much as possible, and I'm pretty sure we're going to be able to do that. For the hybrid model, we'll definitely be able to use desks in every single classroom. So the desks that you see here are radius of 6 feet apart. 6 feet in front, 6 feet behind, 6 feet to the right, 6 feet to the left. I wanted to show you my high school one, but you get the general idea. And ideally, to be totally upfront with you, that's really what I want for all of the kids at HMTCA. I really want us to be socially distanced. That's my thing. I'm just sharing that with you because I really believe that that is part of the equation for what contains the spread, is wearing the mask and staying the 6 feet apart.
Ms. Goldstein, there's a lot of questions about lunch. How would that be handled? Gym, all those kind of things in some of the encores. I mean, that's
Yep.
one common thread, and then I'll get to another one after you respond to that.
Thank you, Mrs. Andrews. So lunch at this point is to be determined. Our food services team has everybody, the district's plan is due to the state for comments, feedback, etc. on Friday, this Friday, the 24th. Then the state gets our plan, and then they provide the feedback. The district plan, as you can imagine, is pretty general. So the current plan is that lunch would be eaten in small groups, and that it would be it depends on the school. Like, they're still working on that. Our goal would be to create seating that allows students to be 6 feet apart, socially distanced during lunch. That's very important. So that would require settings outside of the cafeteria. And I think the district is hoping, and this is where cost really does come into to play, to have lunches delivered to classrooms so that students would be able to eat their lunches in their classrooms. Specials, Jim, I don't have an answer for you about the plan for phys ed. It's still going to be happening. We have a director of phys ed who's putting together that plan. So in a future meeting, these are the questions that I need to get answers to. So I'm collecting your questions so that I can bring them back for our next time that we're together. Mrs. Andrews, what else?
So there are a lot of questions about the Plan B part, which I believe was that we do distance learning from our own school. Was that correct? And so,
right, yep.
But on that slide, I also noticed that it said it wouldn't necessarily be with a teacher that was certified in that area. So I think, and there was also a question about, live instruction, or if somebody's at home, would they be able to, I know we've talked about it, maybe be able to participate in that, and also about, I'm sorry, I'm trying to put them all in one, but recorded lessons. A lot of people, I think, like the recorded lessons. I myself loved it for math for my child. So they're asking all those. And I know even when I did my distance learning, I did record myself. So you could, look at another time. So those are some of the questions.
Yeah.
A lot on that part, that B, for those that wanted to do distance learning.
Like the people. So one thing I did talk to our director, our chief of academics, Dr. Negron, is that even if students enroll in the virtual academy, where you're saying, I'm going to go for a whole marking period, right, virtual, you would not be eliminated from HMTCA. You would maintain your status as an HMTCA student. And that's where, I then need to be thinking about what will we do to support the community wherever people are, virtually or in person. And that you have my word on behalf of HMTCA that would be a goal, and that would be something that we would work toward and maintain. I did see a question about swimming. I do want to say that we are working on that plan. Mrs. Turcott and Ms. Donna came in and started to talk about the exact procedures, because they both are working in pool settings this summer, so they have a lot of knowledge about best practices for that. I do want to let you know that Connecticut, from the standpoint of taking students' temperatures, the recommendation is that that is something that the family does prior to the student leaving home, because the bottleneck of students entering to have their temperature taken is actually, is counterintuitive to what we need for more of a flow coming into the building. So we would not take the temperature of the student on their way into the building. We would have, as an example, arrival. We're creating the plans, but it's looking like all arrival will happen on the internal loop of the learning corridor versus the street. And although it's an extra block that some people have to drive, that loop moves pretty smoothly in the morning. The buses come at pretty predictable times. The disembarking of so it's not going to be a backlog of cars, but that would then allow students to get out of the car, give them access to hand sanitizer before going into the building, pretty easily, and allow also for a smoother transition into the building, because we have to work on specific door entrances, for our students to go in, and then we would have additional adults there as greeters, so we can also monitor, which generally you do have happening at school. Students who come in are usually greeted by one or more teachers in their hallways, but they would be able to do that. Absolutely encouraged for students to bring their own hand sanitizer. No one would ever turn anyone away from having their own hand sanitizer or your own mask. What else, Mrs. Andrews?
Ms. Goldstein, there's also a bunch of questions about just what a typical day would look like at the middle school.
Mm-hmm.
So people are wondering, are the kids moving, or are they staying in one room?
Yep.
So just as a typical, maybe for some of the new parents, what the typical day might look like.
Sure, thank you. So I think I said in the beginning of this, and I'm not sure how fast I can pull the graphic up. If you give me a second, I could give you the graphic. Give me a second, because I just recently, another principal from a different school district was asking about our block schedule. Because what we think is normal at HMTCA is actually not that normal to have the block schedule. And we had, did I send it from my other email? Give me a second. We also just recreated the schedule to be a day 1 and day 2, which is perfect, because that's what the hybrid model is going to require. So we've actually done some work in advance. It wasn't the reason why we did it, but it will, it sure is going to be coming in handy in the very likely possibility that we're going to be going to hybrid. So the regular schedule, it's really going to be, and I'm saying this as a statement, but I'm very interested in your feedback. So I might have to create a different survey, so I can capture some of your feedback. I just found the schedule, so thanks for your patience.
Mrs. Goldstein, while you do that, I'm sorry, I have one more question.
Sure.
So when the kids, the ones who are doing like option C, will it be live instruction, like a Zoom like we're doing now, or will it just be posting assignments?
Yeah, no, it would be live.
Oh, perfect. Thank you.
Yep. So this is, and I don't know how to increase and increase. Yes. Here,
Excuse me, is options B also a live instruction?
so that's one of the, that's an unknown, because the option B is attending HMTCA and participating in HMTCA's virtual platform, and being able to come in and out. So so there's like a mini scenarios within the big scenario of option B. So the mini scenarios are, or the micro scenarios are we going to have, I'm going to tell you the answer is no, but the question is, will we have enough teachers in each of the content areas to make up our own virtual academy? That would be, I keep using the, like, squeezing something from a stone, water from a stone, whatever. Like, you can't be in two places at once. So the only way that would work is if we have a reduced day schedule in our all-in learning. Because then at the reduced day schedule, we could have some teachers teaching in the afternoons live. So chances are that that would not involve live instruction. However, there are some teachers who will be live streaming their classes. So that's like the same thing with hybrid. So let's just use this as an example because I have it up here. Going back to the hybrid, and then we'll answer the question about option B. Hybrid is half of the kids come in on Monday and Tuesday. Trin prep is not going to happen right now, so just ignore that. Half of the kids are coming in on Monday and Tuesday. Everybody gets remote learning following their schedule on Wednesday. And then Thursday and Friday is the other half of the kids coming in. So this group, right, the Monday, Tuesday group, will probably have, like, math. I know a lot of math teachers are going to have live streaming going on. I don't know. See, that's also where where you would say that is live teaching, because they're getting actual live teaching and they can even hear their friends ask the questions that they might even have. But the challenge, and there could be an answer to this that we're going to learn through our own professional development. The challenge is how, if your child had a question, your teacher is teaching in front of the students. So these are things that we're going to have to do some learning about. But this is an example. And like I said, you can just squish this into one line. So this is not there right now. And the specials that you're seeing might get reduced by one. We might not have, we were calling these skinny blocks. We'd probably just have one special here and one special here. So it would be fewer specials, but for the longer block of time. That makes sense, right? That's how it always was. That's how it always was. We were just hoping, because we know how we get a little bit burnt out in the afternoon, kids do, and they like a little bit more variety, but we could reduce that.
Won't let me on.
Hi, so is option B really only an option if we're not green? Or, I mean, how does that work?
Option B, option A, B, and C are the parent options, regardless of the scenario. But if I'm understanding your question, option B sounds a lot like the hybrid model.
Right. So if you opt for option B and there's also option A simultaneously. I'm just not clear as far as how that works.
Yep. So let me see if I think I can respond to what you're saying. So let me just put myself in your shoes. Let's just say you choose option B. Okay.
Right.
And let's just say that we find out on August 29th that we're hybrid, right? Which is the 2 days in, 3 days out, right?
Mm-hmm.
You might say, that's fine, because I'm okay with sending my child to school where they're going to be 6 feet socially distanced in a mask, and home the other 3 days, in which case you would just send your child to school. We would have, so the unknowns are, so like you might say, well, how would that get communicated? You know, we would have to communicate about that. But we're equipped as a school to provide hybrid instruction pretty easily, because it would be half the students on one day and half on the other. So we would have, and I just showed you how we're setting up the desks to be able to do that. So it's not a negative impact on the school if it just makes us happy that we'd be able to have your student there. Is that answering your question?
Yes, because it just wasn't clear to me if you chose that option, unless, you had a significant amount of kids that were also on that option. How does it work with the 2 days in, 2 days off? How does that work? And then you've got kids that are choosing to be there 5 days a week.
Correct. Right. Yep.
Mrs. Goldstein, can you explain a little bit more? It seems like it would just make common sense if the teacher would do a Zoom like what we're doing right now for the distance learning through HMTCA. The kids could sit there just like they were in class. They could ask questions just like they could in class. The teacher could respond just like you and I are responding right now.
Yeah.
But it seems like you're not really sure, and maybe some teachers are going to do this, some are not.
See, but this question is constructive, because what I'm hearing you say is, and this is actually what, like that little thread that I was talking about, is with the right circumstances for teaching, in which live streaming were occurring for the classes, right, regardless of the scenario, and the assignments are placed online, and the interaction among students even occurs online more or less, because even if kids are live, they have those options. They know how to chat and have different conversations. That is sounding like it could be okay with you as a parent to be, and so really that would almost be like an option B, with a heavier emphasis on choosing not to come into school.
Right, I understood option B as being the distance learning through HMTCA as opposed to the district.
Yep.
So yes, you can have the option to go in if you chose, but you also have the option to stay home,
right,
and virtually learn through the teachers that are provided through HMTCA.
Yes, that's right.
Yeah, that would be ideal. As I was looking at the options, when we were in Florida at the private school, you had some students that were in another state, completely other state, but they were in the classroom using technology, and the teacher was giving the instruction, but the student was remote. If indeed with option B, we would consider more of that type of teaching for the children who do not want to be in the classroom. They will still get the lessons that they need and the valuable interaction with their classmates. But also I did, when I homeschooled my children as well, in the my older ones, we did the K12.com model, and in that state it was free.
What's it called?
They were K12.
Yes, I just I have a call with the Northeast representative tomorrow. How
Oh,
did you like
great.
that? How did you like
We
that?
loved it. We loved it. They sent them all their books. At the time, they used textbooks when my daughters did it.
Uh-huh.
They were online in the classroom in a
Yep.
Zoom setting with
Yep.
everybody.
Yep.
And they got the classroom instruction,
Yeah.
and they got the assistance that they needed, and they felt like they were in the classroom and not
Yep.
necessarily homeschooled.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
And so I have been looking into that. However, Connecticut is not one that offers the free entity of it. It's like maybe $5,000 each for my children. So I was looking at that option, and trying to brace myself financially, how that was going to look. But I would think that type of atmosphere would be more conducive for the children, because they'll believe that they're in the classroom and they're interacting with their fellow classmates and their teachers, and they're getting the valuable lessons that they need.
Right.
For me, my daughter, she's dying to come out, but she cannot go to the shops for more than 10 minutes without begging to go back to the car, because she cannot keep the mask. So it would be option B or C where we're concerned. But I would love to see that type of online interaction, if that be the option.
Okay, that's helpful to hear. Yep. Well, and I'm also
So,
oh, go ahead.
Julie, this is Corrine Wilson. I have a question. How are you? So the question that I have is that I'm looking at the option B scenario, just simply because I'm thinking that it would be less stress on the school, because you have kids, you don't have all the children there at the same time, so you're able to do the social distancing in the classroom. So you're able to like educate some kids, and some kids are at home, some kids are on virtual. But that was what one of my main questions is that if my daughter is at home, is she getting it through, is it a YouTube download, or is it a live interaction where she would be in with the classroom and learning like she would be, like she's in class? And I think that we had talked about that in the past, and the reason why we can't get a straight answer is because of legal ramifications. Am I right? Is it because having a Zoom situation where it's just a child, that's something that they're still trying to work around? And that's my question.
Yeah, that's a good question. I'm just putting option B up for people to take a look at, so that you can feel like you're just can ponder it while we're talking. Everything is changing so fast. I can't speak to where we're at in terms of the legality questions. I do know that Google Meet is still, as far as I know, the preferred meeting platform.
Still talking.
But I'm not sure.
I think it was a security thing, because people can hack into the Zoom, or, you can see the background of where the child is. And those were the things that I think the issues were. But I think that and I don't think it's only at HMTCA level, it needs to be at the district level, is that you need to figure out a way on how you can do it live. So whether it's Google Meets, or if it's Microsoft Teams, or it's Zoom, like pick one and find a way to legally be able to have a kid have that interaction. And I think that you're going to find that there's a lot more parents and a lot more people that are going to be on board and be able to handle this situation. I think the way that we were learning the last 3 months of school was just not up to par as to how a child can learn. They need to have that interaction. They need to feel that they're still a part of the team, and finding a way to do that, I think, would be beneficial.
I agree. I think we're in agreement about that.
Yeah.
And I appreciate that. These are things that, we'll take back to our team as well. And I have an optional staff time set up for Monday, where we're going to be talking a little bit more about virtual teaching techniques. I am interested in looking at professional development that we can get for our school from an organization like K-12. They've been doing this for 20 years. Mrs. Brahman's a great resource, because she runs our virtual high school. And so we have an open contract with virtual high school. They're offering some training. So we'll, you know, we're gonna, I think from a teacher perspective, you know, our admin job with your input and with, you know, additional input, we're gonna start putting together a student group. With that input, you know, we'll develop the scheduling, the movement. I actually didn't answer a question that somebody asked about that. So I'll get to that. We'll put that together. And I think when teachers can free up their concern, because, you know, everybody's got a lot on their minds, you know, teachers will be able to focus on what does it mean to be a teacher this year with the remote and the live teaching. So they'll be able to put some thinking and creativity into that. And that's what I really want to take that burden off of them about their worry. One quick thing, having students in the same room all day is not fun.
Yeah.
Right. So like students, they need movement, they need variety.
Mm-hmm.
And we as adults need to figure out how to be able to provide that for them in a way that maintains the safety guidelines. So I feel strongly about that. And I know any student who's been in middle school, even just for 1 year, you know that sometimes you just need to kind of get up and you need to go, you want to be somewhere else. You just need a change of scenery. So we really want to figure out how we can do that, because it's going to take some adjusting.
Click me, please.
Mrs. Goldstein, I'm sorry, one final question for me.
Oh, no problem.
All the patience you've given with my several questions.
Chase.
So one concern I had too, if a student is practicing or involved in option C and they decide to come back to school the second quarter, will those students have to be tested for COVID, being if the school doesn't have any outbreak or any other kids showing up with symptoms? The ones that's been home all this time, will they have to be tested in order to come back in for that second quarter?
I don't anticipate that. I think you're way ahead of us in your thinking about that.
Yeah, well, in my family, we experienced several deaths from COVID and not COVID, so we're very cautious, which is the reason why Peyton isn't coming back the first quarter. So just kind of, that's why we're thinking ahead. Like, what would that look like when we do say, okay, it looks like the schools are safe, she can now go back? Should I be concerned with getting her tested?
Yep, these are good things to think about.
Ms. Goldstein, will the high school schedule
look
the same as it has, or is there any change in the high school schedule?
Can't you just click my picture?
I did. Stop it. Just 1 second. So the high school schedule is, it's such a precious thing. You know, and I say that, you know, because even I know as a middle school, you know, if you're a parent of only middle schoolers, you're kind of like, middle school, make it stop, you know, but like all kids are developing in middle school. And then somehow when you show up to high school, it will, it settles in. So we really want to maintain the schedule for our high school students and figure out how to make that work. And like I said, should you choose an option that makes it so that that doesn't make sense for you, then I need to figure out how to accommodate that. But I did see one or more comments that things are feeling more confusing than they are clear, which I feel sorry for. I apologize for that. And I'd love to hear more about, like, is there something that I'm saying that is making this more confusing, or is it just like that it's a difficult decision and there's a lot to think about? Because if it's my communication, then I need to change that. I need to improve that.
I don't think it's your communication. I think you're doing great. I just think that decisions are not made yet. So we're kind of like in the fence. What are we going to do? Because the district hasn't made a decision yet as well. So, and I did listen to her earlier prior to this one. And right now we can't even decide what we would like to do if things are not clear. That's how I see it.
Yep. Thanks.
I also feel that it's difficult right now to make a decision without all the information. So I have a high schooler and a middle schooler, but the high schooler, it seems that you're not sure about the classes that will be offered during the option B.
Oh,
so I think
during
for
what? Say that again.
option B or 2, is it B or 2? The second option.
Okay. So if you mean like if you choose option B, it's not clear, I'm not being clear about whether or not the student would be maintaining their schedule as designed. That's, yeah, I do see how that is fuzzy. I also see that we're going to need to have more meetings, and I know that they might just cause more confusion, but like things are going to get more clear, and that's one question that needs a very clear and quick answer to it. And I think that, I can hold another meeting next week. I don't know if we'll have more information to bounce off of. So it might be like a less attended meeting. But when the governor makes a decision about the recommendation for return to school, that will, go ahead.
Sorry, Julie, do you know when they will have a final decision as to what the protocols will be?
The understanding I have is that August 1st was the last date that I heard from, that Governor Lamont wanted to have a decision for us.
Oh, okay. All right. Well, when they do that and they have a final decision, then I think it'll be a lot clearer. Because I think basically what everybody's doing right now, because I have friends that go to private school, I have friends that go to other public schools, and everybody is kind of in the same boat. We don't know exactly what the mandates are going to be. So I think that everybody is just presenting what the options are, and so that at least you can start having the conversation. So then when they do go into mandate where this is what you will be doing, then at least you know what it is and you can move forward from there. But I think you're very clear as to what's going on and what the different options are. And then as we move forward, you're going to have to go into it. Because I think of it as a health professional myself, it took them like 2 months to figure out if they're going to open or if they're not going to open. And even when they did open, they had all these crazy guidelines in place that were so not doable. And then within a week, they decided, oh, we don't need that. You know what I mean? So every profession is in that boat where you just don't know. And as you get into it, you slowly but surely, you mature, you get into it, and then you realize that, yes, this is pertinent. This is something that we do know. And as we know, as we've seen what's going on in Connecticut, and I see in my own practice, that wear your mask, wash your hands frequently, and just stay away from it, you'll be fine. You will be fine. And if you can mandate those things in school, I think we'll be able to get through this.
Yep. Thank you. I think, so here's what you need from me, just to recap before we wrap up. You need to know, what does it mean for a student to be in option B in terms of their teaching? And I honestly do want to just tell you, it means that they get to be in their classes and that they would choose an online only experience of that class. So that's what I'd like to see happen. I just realized as you asked it, unless I know confidently that I can answer a question for you, I can't make it up. So you will get that answer as to what it means for option B. What I would like to wrap up with is that although that your head might be spinning right now and it feels like you have to make the right decision, the thought that I've given it to is, one, there's no one right decision, and that's the tricky part. So the decision you make is the right one because you made the decision and you're the mom or dad. So people might agree with it, people might have judgments about it, people might be worried about it, you might be worried about it, right? You might second guess. But when it all is said and done, these are options that the state has asked the district to provide. These are options that are being provided by the district. Therefore, they're all correct decisions and they're all right, whatever you decide. Number two, I don't know if this makes sense or not, but it's just us. It's still us. Like, it's still your teachers, and it's still all of our kids, and it's still us as a community. So like that, I know that sometimes, and I'm saying this, and I have these experiences myself too, as if like things are coming crashing down and that there's no good solution in sight. In reality, we're gonna make it work, okay? I'm gonna make it work for you. Your kids, I know our kids are gonna step up. Masks is not optional. That is not going to be tolerated, right? We are gonna have crystal clear agreements about that, because, and this is where maybe it's kind of like, oh boy, you're being confusing again, Mrs. Goldstein, but because we have the virtual platform always there, so that's really what's going to keep us all together. I'm available, you know, I think we need to put another, we'll put another one of these meetings on the calendar. We'll figure out how to have some open office hours too, depending on how many people want to have some personal conversations. I would recommend right now, unless you have a crystal clear in your mind reason why your student should not choose like option A or B, you know, where they're coming to school. And there are some parents who it's like, it has to be option C. There's no question in my mind. You know what I'm saying? There are some parents who are going to say that, where you're basically going to say for the next quarter, your student will be getting virtual learning through Hartford Public Schools Virtual Academy, which they're very committed to making very high quality. And then we will figure out how to keep your kids connected to us at HMTCA, okay? I would say to choose to do what we're gonna do. That's what I would say. Come along with us. We're gonna make it work.
Ms. Goldstein, I had a quick question when you're done.
Can I say something about the seniors though, real quick?
Yeah.
And this goes back to why I really want you along with us. Especially our juniors and our seniors, sophomores, freshmen, but juniors, seniors, your schedule is so important. And the one that we have put together for your child is the one that we want in place. So please know that whatever decision you decide, I'm very committed to you to make that a high quality academic experience for your child that is tailored to what they chose at our school. Okay? And I'm confident that with the team that we have, we're going to be able to put that in place. I want you to feel good about our commitment to you. It might not come with a quick answer or necessarily an easy answer, but we're going to make it work, because I do not want your child to have any compromise in their academic program at all. My son just graduated from high school. I get it. I just went through the whole ride with 2 kids, and I have nieces and nephews, you know, in that. So I'm with you on that. Let me stop. Did anyone have any questions that are for the best of the group? That's like kind of a group question. And if not, you could hang out if you want to chat for another like 5 minutes. And if otherwise, I will be back in touch with a communication about option D. and anything else, and we'll have another meeting set up most likely at this time for next week, and definitely for a couple of days after the governor's announcement. So thank you guys, and I'll take your question now.
Okay, so quick question. In a perfect world, we're all in green and I've chosen my son to go to option A. And I know transportation is a big thing with other schools because they come from different parts. For this magnet school, will that be an issue? And due to that, would they like consider saying, okay, no, we don't have enough people for buses, so, or we don't have enough bus drivers, so now we'll have to just go to like option C for everyone?
No, the transportation is not going to be a reason why we have an option. The transportation is in place.
Awesome. Okay, thank you.
Yep. I do
Ms.
know.
Goldstein-
Yep.
This is a high school question. Is the partnership still intact? Well, I'm sure it's still intact, but are students who are on track to take college classes at Trinity or Capital, is that still going to happen?
Thank you for that question. It will be online. So Trinity campus has very strict, parameters in place. So for at least for this semester, the students who are in Trinity classes will be enrolled in the Trinity classes, and they will take them online. And there are Trinity classes online. There's kids at Trinity who have to take classes online.
Thank you.
Yep. And community college, I got to find out what Capital's plan is. I don't know it. I know I did get another question from transportation. And that transportation, it's universal and it's individual. So if your child is on a bus that is generally fairly crowded and you have concerns about the transportation, that's really something we need to talk about with you. The transportation right now is set to happen as it is programmed, with students wearing a mask, with windows being open, with having, not in the cold weather, but keeping the air circulating, with students boarding from back to front, to have there's traffic flow. But I do know that we do have some parents who have some considerations about what transportation will look like. And that it's harder for me to answer as in a global way. So I'd need to hear specifically what the concerns are and find out how those transportation issues are set up, to see how that factors into your concern.
Mrs. Goldstein, a lot of people are asking how they, because I know you're recording this, but when will it be available and where? How are you going to make it available?
Well, it sounds like it will make the most sense if I send the recording in one of our school messenger emails.
Okay.
Thank you.
Mrs. Goldstein, just a quick question. One of the unique things about a magnet school is the kids come from all over the state versus a local school where you're, just in one town. How many towns do you typically bus in, from other towns throughout the Connecticut area?
It really varies from year to year, but Mrs. Andrews actually knows that.
You may be surprised, but I know last year we had at least 45 different communities. It might have been just one from a town, but yeah, it's actually quite a few. It's at least 40 to 45.
So so about how many kids do you have in the school and in the average classroom if every kid decided to go to HMTCA? This is specifically high school for my daughter. Mm-hmm. How many, kids are squished into one class, and how many do you have wandering the halls?
So there's class sizes that are as low as 12 and as high as 28. And the next point of order, you know, one thing that I looked at was, how can I have everybody as close to socially distanced in our school, just physically? Like, how could I do that? The compromise involved in making it so that every student was as close to 6 feet apart is that it ironically, it's kind of like shooting yourself in the foot. Like the teaching would have to all be online. And that's not, I actually kind of have some fun solutions to how that can work, but easy for me to say. So that's not being advised right now by the district. What we would look at is the room size. So like, as an example, like a math class, those classes, traditionally, especially freshman, sophomore classes, they need to be in larger rooms. So what we'll definitely be looking at is, what are our higher enrolled classes and what rooms are they currently assigned? And then those are going to need to get changed so that we have small group sizes in small rooms and the other way around. Hallway transitions are going to have to be done very tightly. We're going to have to stagger our transitions. We're going to do that most likely through zones in the school, and we're going to give kids more passing time. So it's going to be tricky. It's going to be tricky. A lot of it will be getting our procedures down. Once we get the procedures down, there will be a flow to it, but it'll take a little time, and we're going to probably need more mask breaks in the beginning of the year. We're going to need just more time getting acclimated to the conditions of school. And then once we build that capacity, then we'll be able to extend out from there. But I can't have kids wandering the hall. Who said that? And I have to have everybody in a mask. Everyone has to wear a mask.
So how many are totally in the building at one time? Kids.
So if it's all in, we would have, right now our enrollment is off by, we'd have up to 1,050 kids, 1,056 kids. So if we had half of that, that's half as many as we would have. And then the classrooms, which I showed you the pictures, would have those 6 feet social distance, because that's a rule.
So how are you going to ensure that the kids do follow the social distance rules in the hallways, in the bathrooms, in the cafeteria?
Mm-hmm.
How are you guys doing that?
So we have a couple of committees that we're going to be putting together that hopefully are going to start meeting next week to talk about that for each of the grade levels. We have to provide training. Staff needs to get trained. Students will need to get some training in the mask wearing, in making a commitment, in signing agreements, and that it's so serious that you wear a mask that you can't be in school if you're not going to wear your mask. And we will honor that in a very respectful way, but in a very no negotiations way. Bathrooms, we have certain teachers who are like so expert on this that I need their input, as far as like making every bathroom a single use bathroom. How do we create the bathroom breaks? There are answers to every one of those questions. So that, I'm looking at some chat stuff and I need to get you the survey. So that will get worked out in advance. And everyone basically by coming in, there'll be another form that every parent will go over, that every student will sign, that shows that understanding. And we'll reinforce it. And like I said, we have to make it bearable. Okay. So we have to set up conditions so that it's really not that hard.
And I know the lockers, they're not 6 feet apart, and I know that's going to be hard to make them be separate from 6 feet to get to the locker. So that's another thing, like they're so close together.
Yeah. Yeah, that's a technical puzzle that has an answer to it. But it does need to get, I'm glad you brought it up. And these are things that when we meet closer to the beginning of school, you should be hearing all of those plans, all those procedures, all those plans, and still be giving input and, you know, helping to adjust it. So it's not like we're going to figure it all out, start school, and not have these conversations. We're going to have to keep having them, and you have to have other ways to provide your feedback so that we can adjust it. The one thing is the mask, though, because once the mask comes off, the fidelity is gone, and it's like there's no point. So it's got, that's the thing.
Can I say something about the lockers and changing classes? Well, my older son is in another school, and there will be no use lockers at all. They will be carry their stuff with them, and some classes, the teachers will change classes, not the students. So I think that plan maybe will work for HMTCA too.
Yep, that's something the transition team will discuss. The locker, you know, the other thing I should have mentioned this, that we're working on the, I'm going to find the link to the survey, and I'm going to send it with my, the video of this meeting. So everybody gets the survey from the superintendent. I do think that there's ways for us to move in the building that is doable, manageable, and safe. And when you're coming to school every day, you need some variety, or you start to just not, it's just not fun. So we do need to figure that out. And some of the recommendations might be, the locker actually could be something that gets told as far as not having it. Devices, Chromebooks, laptops. In our records, we have about a record that about half of our students signed out a laptop. We have been provided with more laptops to get signed out. So I need to talk with our team too about the process of that, so that your student has a laptop, because they're gonna need that. Because, you know, even though the backpack is like, the backpack can often be filled with a lot of things, we're not going to be able to use textbooks that are shared. There's a lot more streamlining, so a lot of things are going to be housed electronically. To get your email address to the superintendent. Well, I don't have an explanation for why you did not get an email from the superintendent. It would be something that we'd have to streamline through our family resource. You know, Mrs. Heller, we'll work on that. But in the meantime, I can copy that link from the superintendent and send it out. Okay. Thank you guys for everything. You're gonna think of like 5 more things after we get off this call. Like, everybody's gonna think of 5 more things, and I'm not sure. I'm gonna figure out how to capture that, but in the meantime, you know, you can send that as an email to me, because it's all of us putting our brains together, you know, to come up with all the considerations. Yeah, just think, because the teachers have also filled 3 pages of their questions and concerns that all need to have answers to them. So you know, we've had meetings too with that too. And that question list becomes a checklist. That's how I look at it. It becomes a checklist that then we need to have an answer to for every one of the questions.
I have a question. Speaking of teachers,
yep.
I know this is a little off the beaten path. It's not necessarily to do with Corona, but this is something that I find a huge challenge in the Hartford public schools and the Connecticut public schools, is to have teachers that look like the children that they are teaching. And as of now, I don't think you have any teachers of color, do you?
We definitely have teachers of color, but it is a definite problem.
And I keep hearing the same excuses, because my children were at CREC for 7 years, and for 7 years I was on their case, and from human resources to the principal, and everybody has the exact same excuses. And it's like, when are the excuses going to stop? And you guys actually start to do something, because there are many historically Black colleges and universities that are graduating students of color. So it's not like they're not there. Nobody is attracting them. And this is a problem, because you have more than 50% of your student population is of color, and you have 90% white women teaching our children. And a lot of them are Amy Coopers. I'm sorry to say, I hate to get so upset, but I've been going through this for 7 years, and I am just so tired of it. I don't know what I need to do. I need a movement. I need signatures. I've gone to human resources. Nobody can give an account for why this is a problem. And you have all children that don't care about these young Black boys and girls. They're just in it for a paycheck. And I know I sound really harsh, and people may not want to feel what I'm saying, but this is the truth. I'm a woman of color, and I see it with my own eyes. So when are you trying to recruit anyone of color? Because it makes a difference. It really does.
Yep, it makes a huge difference. From the standpoint of filling our vacancies, that's the first goal, is to have a teacher of color take a vacancy. That is unfortunately not the case in most of our vacancies for this year. It's a huge problem. I'm not making an excuse. Can you hold on for just 1 second? Hold on. Sorry, I booked this room in the house. I said this is off limits, so I had to. It's a huge problem. We do, what I will say, and this is going to barely hit the surface, is that we are going to be moving toward and accelerate having our school anti-racist, which by definition is really a problem when you have an overrepresentation of white teachers in a school. So that's not an easy answer, but it is a huge problem. It's a huge problem. And I'm open. My ideas, I think we have to do more to encourage our own students to want to become teachers, to encourage that, to create a pathway so that we have students who are going through education programs or come through alternate and come back to our schools to teach. That's an idea. I think that's a whole conversation. Can you excuse me 1 more second? Sorry about that. I do have to wrap up. I'm sorry. We have the Race and Equity Center is coming to provide some training for us in the beginning of the year. They also are going to be training some of our teachers who are more advanced in their ability to create conditions and build toward the anti-racist school. We obviously are going to need parent involvement. So I share your concern, and I agree with you.
You will be constantly hearing from me for the next however many years I have to be on your case.
Okay.
My name. I am Tanika. I will be on your case every minute, every day, because This is not okay.
Okay.
Ms. Goldstein, just to move more of the technical question regarding transportation. Will and maybe you answered this and I just missed it, will the buses have distancing as well, like every other seat, or do you know about transportation?
Yep. So the current busing regulations do not require social distancing. The social distancing in the hybrid model is going to be more possible through the every other seat where students are sitting in their seats.
Can I say something about that? Because I work as a school bus driver.
Absolutely.
All right. Well, until now, we don't have hear anything about that from our jobs. We're gonna have meeting next month. I have my meeting the 18th, so we don't know yet how it will work. But one thing that I can say so parents can hear is educate your kids about stay in your seat and keep your mask on. I have 7 years working as a bus driver. Special middle kids are very hard to discipline, and we don't have no monitors in the bus. So it's hard for us to keep your kids in their seats. So parents have to work hard and talk to them so they can follow whatever the rules are that we don't have yet, because I don't hear anything yet. So they can be possible, you know, the distance or whatever they need to do in the bus. Everybody hear me?
Yep. Yep. So I think no, you're making a good point, and I think that again we have to have a non-negotiable agreement about bus safety, about masks, and the difficult challenge. Although if we can create things in a way that feels fair, is that having the virtual classroom as the guiding thread through all of the scenarios of all in-person, hybrid, and remote is going to allow students to have access to the things that they need to learn, so that everybody can be safe and get the education they need. So we do need to support all of our bus drivers and, you know, give more authority to bus drivers to be able to enforce that, because it's hard with the one person driving the bus. So, well, this is one of those things where we should have also agreed in the beginning that we weren't going to have a lot of closure. So I am going to have to go. But like I said, we'll meet again. You have email. Conversations will be continued through to resolution, including systemic racism and problems in our school that need to change. So more to come. And I thank you all very much for your partnership and for your voices, and look forward to continuing and seeing how we are going to make this work, because we're going to make it work. Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, bye-bye.
Thank you.
Thanks.